welcome to Ideas That Happen by Bax & Company, where we look at the best pilots, projects and initiatives transforming Europe through collaboration and innovation. Today we're talking cities, and more specifically, how cities can be made healthy for people that live in them. Now, 75% of European citizens live in a city. It's ultimately very convenient to live in a city. But convenient doesn't always mean healthy for everybody that lives in a city. For example, we see with air pollution, 96% of EU citizens that live in cities are exposed to a level of air pollution that's too high. And this causes 240,000 excess deaths every year. We also see obesity being a problem. There are many ways in which a city can be obesogenic. That means that there are ways in which a city is built and planned and designed that encourages obesity. So there are many ways in which we can improve the ways cities work. There are obvious solutions. We could include congestion charges, healthy eating campaigns, or encouraging cycling. But what if there was a way to take this at a deeper level? What if we could prevent city health problems rather than having to cure them? Well, I'm with two guests today who work in just this topic, who work in healthy cities, the idea of designing cities to promote health so that we are doing more prevention and less curing. So my first guest is Marta Rofin Serrà. She is the head of the Healthy Cities Initiative and is also the director of the Health and Urbanism course at the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. And we also have here Eloi Juvillà, who is the director of Building and Logistics at the Provincial Council of Barcelona Now, the two of you have worked together on a project we're going to hear a lot about shortly, which is called L'Industrial Suma, which is a project to put health, among other things, in the center of a big urban regeneration project here in Barcelona. So really excited to talk about that a little bit today. But let's start with you two. I'd like to know a bit about your background and how you first got involved in healthy cities. So Martha.
Thank you, Ben. I'm an architect and urban planner. I have been in urban planning for the last almost 15 years. And I used to work on sustainable urban planning with a focus on environmental sustainability, more from the equality point of view. And so actually we were working on active mobility, how we can foster active mobility, how we can incorporate green areas, but with a focus on the sustainability and the environment. But at the end of the day, then you realize that you do everything to improve health from this holistic point of view, physical health, mental health, and environmental health. So for me, health is what gives sense to everything. Because if we don't build our environment for people, then why do we do it? No, it doesn't make so sense.
Fantastic. And Eloi?
Well, as a practitioner, I started my career working on equipments and public space projects. So I try to make them friendly and to respond to the needs of the society. But I know that something is wrong. I never was so satisfied with my projects. And I think because it's my academic training and the tools I have to design did not serve to promote to the space for people. They maybe is for the mobility, for efficiency, for economy, but they don't serve to people to be happy. So I started to look for other models that could help me to do this, to do that people could be happy in the public space. And from there I realized that it was, it's not possible to do it only in a public space. You need to see all the city to do this.
Yeah, no, so I think it sounds like both of you were looking for a more holistic way in some ways to tackle this issue, a holistic way for happiness. And that led you to healthy cities. So for the benefit of people at home who might not know what we mean when we talk about healthy city, what is a healthy city?
For me, the first question you should answer is, what is health?
Okay.
Before start to talk, what is a healthy city? So to understand what's health, and the World Health Organization used to say that health is a complete state of well-being, physical and mental, and not only the absence of disease. So when we talk about health, we're actually talking about well-being and quality of life. So from this point of view, healthy city is a city that facilitates you to live this active and healthy lifestyle, promoting you having good social relationships and be close to the place where you work or you live. So that's the concept of healthy cities from this holistic point of view.
Well, I always use an example that it goes well, that birds, when the birds do their nest, no? The birds do this nest to achieve good conditions for him, for birds, and for his eggs, for example. But why we build our nest that hurts us? No? We are the only animals that we build our habitat that it goes against us. Why? It's not normal. If it's our habitat, this habitat will go with us to help us to promote health lifestyles and to minimize the negative effects on people and to allow social development. So if animals do, why we don't do this with our cities that is our nest? No? I think healthy cities, it will be our nest, and our nest, it will goes with us to help to be healthy, not against us. Yeah. I think it's a good example for me.
Yes, I would say also that at some point the well-being of people was no longer the driver behind the planning process. And some aspects like economic and industrial and productive factors came to determine the shape of our cities. So we gave some priority to the road mobility, and that hurts, of course, our health.
I hear a lot that cities are designed for cars, not for people. And I suppose that's an important part of healthy cities, is designing with people and well-being in mind.
I think we have David Harvey. They say that the cities for 20 or 30 or 40 years have only designed to be a motor, a build, an engine to the money. No? But we lost the thing that is where we live. And if we lost where we live, we can go anywhere. But we can go to make money to another place, but not to live a place that is not the city. I think we should focus on that we live there. Yeah. So we need to live there.
Right, indeed. With words that don't leave for next instance.
Yeah,
right. You have to
make sure that helps. Yeah.
So it sounds like to me that this is much more than just keeping people out of hospitals. This is about building places people want to live in and that people have a good quality of life in. Sounds like.
Yeah, we need to avoid people go to the hospitals. I mean, if we have healthy citizens, healthy people, then we don't need to go to the hospitals. Hospitals are okay, but a healthy city is not a city full of hospitals, of course.
Yeah.
It's a city where people doesn't need to go to the hospital.
Yeah. That's very interesting because, I mean, typically, as I understand, healthcare access is higher in cities, but that doesn't necessarily mean better health outcomes.
No, of course.
If you're not designing.
Because we invest a lot of money in take care of you when you are ill, but not in prevent you to be ill. I think this is the difference. If we spend more money on preventing that you become ill, we will not go to the hospital. I think it's better.
Yeah. Yeah. I read an interesting book last year, which is great for any innovation thinker. It's called Upstream. And it's just this idea that rather than spending lots of money preventing problems, if you move one level up, like to the design phase, right?
Exactly.
And then you have the chance to remove all of these costs for something that's much cheaper and much more effective in general. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, yeah, let's move on and talk a little bit about L'Industrial Suma, which is a project you've both worked on, essentially applying all of the lessons and the principles that we've just discussed. So maybe Eloi, could you start by telling us what is L'Industrial Suma? What are some of the big goals, and how have you included health in your plans?
Okay, I think L'Industrial Suma is an urban renovation project. Okay, from a part of the city. It's like for Eixample Island. It's really a big, and it's in the center of Barcelona, in a really dense city. So it's really important, and it's a renovation project from an industrial university Barcelona, the old industrial university Barcelona campus. No, and when we want to decide what we will do there, the strategy has three main objects. First of one is to be a driver for innovation in public services. The engine to research how we can innovate public services to increase the quality of life of people. The second is how to improve the feeling of belonging. We have understand with the globalization, we need that people should be proud where he lives. No? So we need to increase this feeling of belonging. We will do this by preserving the heritage and explaining the memory from the space. And the last one, but not the less important, is that we want that the industrial could be the climate shelter and the square of this neighborhood. We are in a very dense neighborhood. We are really in I can make an example. The OMS, the Mundial Health Organization, says that we need about 15 meters per person of green areas in the cities. Barcelona has around 8, if you don't count Collserola. L'Eixample, that is the neighborhood of La Industrial Suma, it's about 2 meters. So we are really in a dense center that they don't have really green space, they don't have public space. So we want that La Industrial became this climatic shelter and this square and this garden for all the neighborhood.
And I guess within that, what sounds like a very holistic plan, it made sense to start thinking about health as well. If you're going to design for climate, for belonging, then health is a natural addition, I suppose, in some ways.
It is a natural addition, but it was, when we start at the beginning, we don't know if we can add this parameter, because we don't know if we have tools to do this.
Okay.
I think this one is one of the problems, no? That maybe you know that you will include health in your desk, but maybe you don't have the tools to do it. No? Is when we meet Marta, and she's City Health, no, to help us to do this.
There you go. Nicely segues is what I wanted to ask, which is what does this process look like when you try to start adding health into a planning project? So Marta, when you first started working with Eloi on Industrial, how did you go about thinking and planning for health?
I would say that the first step is incorporating the health perspective at the very beginning of the project, at the same level as you talk about or you think about economic or productive perspective. So put health also at the very beginning. Try to understand what are the health needs of your neighborhood, of your environment. We analyzed a little bit the data that we have in the neighborhood. We realized that there is a problem with mental health and depression, with anxiety. So, and all those aspects are related with the greening, with the increasing the green coverage, the access to public space and green space. So try to understand what are the health needs, incorporate them at the very beginning, and try to link them and see how those needs can be addressed through your urban planning or urban design project. So that's the process, no? I would say.
Yeah, and it has changed our initial items. For example, we thought that in this neighborhood, they have a very sedentary lifestyles, is what we thought in the beginning. So we say, okay, we need more sport facilities in this area because they need to do more sport. But after the study that Marta does, we know that we should focus more on mental health, no? And we need to do project that slow the life, no, of the neighborhood, and so it changed the project. It changed the actions that we will do. I think that's interesting.
Of course, they already had a project, but it's always important also how to fit the ideas and the whole project with the health needs, with the people living there, with their actual needs. So just incorporating this perspective, I think that's why it's important to have this kind of health assessment at the very beginning, to drive your project in the right way, then rather than at the end of it.
And to show to the neighborhood, to the citizen, that you are doing things that will increase his health, not against his health. And I think it's important to, as a public administration, we should do the things, but we should explain the things too. And I think that's an important point too.
Yeah, this is really something I wanted to ask, which is, even when you're designing a city, after you've designed it, people may not know the thinking that went into it. People don't walk around the streets thinking about how the cities were designed every day. So how do you communicate the concept of planning for health to ultimately the most important stakeholders, which are the people that are going to live in the cities. How does that communication?
Well, the project is just in the beginning, so the first thing we do is in the newspapers, in the TV, we explain the project, and last Saturday we do an event for all the citizens. And it's an open event, and we do a party with music, with eat, and there we explain all the project, and we explain that it's based on his health impact assessment. No, I think that's important for them, because they say, why you have to do this? Because you as an architect decide that you are good and you do this, or because, well, we say, no, we are based on evidence, in this case of facts, no, from this study. No, I think that's important, because they give you a base, no, a basement, an important basement for all the actions you do after. I think that's important.
The point is that there is plenty of scientific evidence linking urban environment and health in different ways, with physical health, mental health, environmental health. But for many years we didn't saw this relationship. But even if you don't want to see it, the relationship still exists. So the point is that we need to make it visible, we need to understand it well, and we need to explain for people to understand why do we take some kind of decisions instead of another ones. So it's something about make it visible. It's so important, I think.
And make it visible why you choose one action or another. I think that is important, because at least it's democracy. No? You say, okay, I do this because of that. No? And I think to say, okay, I do this because of I put health on the center. And I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of, I know you're early on, but what have some of the reactions been when you explain the thinking behind it? Do people understand it intuitively as a concept? Do they agree with the goals that as an architect you have put?
Well, I think people now, it's always the same. If for example, when I talk about these things with people that maybe it's not really in the side, no? I always say, okay, let's talk about your child, no? Your child go to the school and they come back, and when they go to the school, they have a lot of pollution there, and their life will be shorter than we thought. And they say, well, we are talking about my child. I think it's different. So you say, okay, you think it's so difficult to change this? And I think when you can personalize this, it's more effective, no? And I say, okay, if you can do that, cars go by the other way and your child go by this, and they don't have all this pollution, it's possible that, well, it's not so difficult, no, in this way. But nobody wants to do this in his street, no? Always, we want always this, but in the neighborhood, not in our house. But when you talk about that, it's easy to combine someone that you are doing this for his child or for his grandmother, or for that note. Health is something that it's important. I think you should focus on something that they can understand. I think, yes, when you do this, people understand.
Yeah, I think that it's, from my experience, that always happens. When you change your speech and you don't talk about urban planning or urban design or regeneration or this kind of wording, and you talk about health and you both talk about well-being, and you talk about the possibility to go by walk, or also when you talk about mental health or depression or even cardiovascular diseases or diabetes or this kind of, then people feels much more close to your project. It's everything gets more sense, and it's everything much more understandable. So in that way, also incorporating health into the urban planning helps a lot to urban planners and architects to explain the projects. Yeah.
So it's almost a way to make urban planning accessible or relevant to people's lives.
Yeah, I think we always think there are some professions, sort of careers, an architect is one and lawyers is another, that we talk thinking that nobody will understand us. No? And this is good, because you need another architect to explain what the architect is saying. No? I think we need to change this. Yeah. How you should talk like you talk with another people. And I think that sometimes is difficult. No? But well, I think yes. For example, the event we do last Saturday, no, someone is looking your board, no, and saying, "Oh, really, we have so mental problems?" And I say, "I don't have these mental problems." After the wife saying, "You always
Maybe yes.
maybe yes. You come at home sometimes and boom, boom, boom." And I say, "Okay, now I go to walk here that in the square that you have made, and well, maybe I come back home better." No, say, "Okay, maybe it's true." So sometimes people don't realize that they have really these problems, no. But when they realize, they know that that you are doing things well. No, I think. Well, that's just an example. That's what happens Saturday. Saturday.
That's fantastic. And I suppose from these little experiences, or if we have small areas like La Industrial that are changing and people can experience these better conditions, then it becomes easier to have the conversation maybe at a larger level, right? So I guess, because I mean, a healthy city isn't just master planning, but it's really...
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, because normally as a city, you are not working in your master planning every year. You draft the master plan for your city, and then it takes like 10, 15, even 20 years to change it. So master planning is a very good opportunity to incorporate the health perspective in your plan, but normally you don't have so many of those opportunities, but you have a lot of regeneration projects in the small neighborhoods. So you can keep on incorporating health in every single project that you work, and that's also really, really interesting. And that's what we need to do, I think.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, this all sounds great, but I wonder, what are the kind of challenges that come up when you're trying to apply a health perspective? I imagine in theory often it can work very well, but you know, there's always a slight gap, I imagine, between the theory and the practice. So what are the challenges that arise when we try and plan and design the healthy cities?
Try to explain and make it feasible. It's always a challenge because, of course, health is multifactorial and depends on many, many things, not only in the urban environment. So there is a complex relationship between urban environment and health. So the health impact assessment helps, but that's why it's important to find ways to communicate visually and easy to understand those impacts on health coming from the urban planning or the urban design perspective. So this is the main challenge. How can you explain a relationship that it's per se really, really complex and not easy? But in this, that I think that scientific evidence helps a lot. We have every day a lot of scientific data, scientific papers supporting the idea. But also that's why we are also working on this Healthy City Generator tool, which is a tool that helps to make it visible the impact on health from the urban planning. So we're working on it.
Right. And this is one of the key tools that you're developing in the Healthy Cities initiative. That's right. A kind of visualization tool, and that urban planners or just interested people can go online and use and see these relationships. Is that right?
Yeah, urban planners, but also public health, people from public health, because the Healthy City Generator has like 2 entry points. So you can first determine your health needs, and then the tool helps you to drive your plan in a way that makes sure that fits with your needs actually. And then you can use the other entry point where you can assess your plan and to see what are the impact on health. So it's a tooling for both, for planners, for practitioners, for public health, but also for citizens. I think it's a very useful tool for citizen engagement to really help you explain and them to understand that when you talk about urban planning, you're actually talking about health, and that the tool helps in that way.
Okay, great. We'll put a link to the description of this video in case anyone's interested in seeing the Healthy Cities Generator. It sounds very interesting. Fantastic. Great. I'm trying to wrap up now. Fantastic. Well, all sounds very interesting in relation to La Industrial, but I wanted to ask, what's next? What's next for the Diputación de Barcelona, and what's next for healthy cities as a concept?
Well, for the Diputación de Barcelona, I think the health assessment that what we have done in La Industrial was our first prueba piloto that we say, no? And we saw that it works. I think this is important for us, for our politicians, and for practitioners. So now we will do this in all the campus we have around Barcelona. Say, okay, we need to do this health assessment to understand what's happening in the neighborhood and to understand what actions we will do to be positive in the health of the neighborhood. I think Marta says in the beginning, I think it's important to implement the vision of health from the beginning. I think that is the most important thing. The same way that you a mobility map or an infrastructure map, you need to do this health assessment and to put it on the desk of the decision makers. I think this is what is important, and this is what we will do in the future with all the campus we have. And after that, as Marta says, we have 10 years to develop all these things and to have the feedback. I think it's important too. Okay, we have a plan, we have a health plan, but we need to see at the end if the feedback is good. And if not, we're thinking, no? Always. I think that's plan.
Great. Well, if people listening or watching at home would like to learn more about what's going on in Industrial, where can they find more information?
We have a web in Diputació de Barcelona. You can find it because it's really neat, and you can find all the information about La Industrial Suma there. And maybe next Saturday, you will have all the study to understand what's there.
And if anyone at home wants a trip to Barcelona, I guess they can come and see it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And in terms of the Healthy Cities initiative, the Healthy Cities Generator, etc., where can people go to find more?
Yeah, the Healthy Cities initiative, we are working not only the Healthy Cities Generator, which is an important part of our work, of course, is this freely available online tool that everybody can access and play with it and just to try. But also we are what we call the Healthy Cities Lab, where we make some research and trainings and some for municipalities as well, where the research about the urban environment and health, not only on urban planning, but also on mobility and greening and so on. And then we also work on what we call the Healthy Cities Action, where we are developing also some urban plans for the cities and try to put all this knowledge and all the tools together in a practical way to design some urban plans.
We will definitely put some links in the descriptions.
Yes, and you can see everything on the healthycitiesgenerators.com. That's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much both for your time. We wish you the best of luck, and maybe we can have you on in 10 years' time when the entire Barcelona is designed like Healthy City. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Great. So maybe next time you're walking home, you can think to yourself, would I be happier if I'd walked through some green space on the way? I'm certainly going to be thinking about it on my walk home. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to having you next time for more Ideas That Happen.